Okay, I just started recording.
Hi.
Wait, where's my paper at?
Oh my gosh, I'm scared. What are you gonna ask me about?
I don't know. We're just gonna have a conversation about questions I have for you, I guess.
Okay, I'm excited.
Wait. I think we should close the door.
Okay, it'll feel more cozy and private.
You can adjust the mic if it's like turning to the side.
Okay.
Like you can try to make it
Like,
toward you.
right toward me. Okay, exciting.
Okay.
Hi.
Do you have any topics that you want to
Talk
about, or should I just start asking you questions?
that you can just start asking me questions.
Okay.
If something comes up, I'll like ask if I can do a tangent.
Okay.
Is that okay?
You can just go on a tangent if you want.
Okay. Sounds good.
So, one thing I was curious about was like when you think about relationships or people and then you interact with them, do you think a lot? Is it mental, or do you feel like you just do it and
I think
enjoy it? Whatever.
like it definitely depends on like who it is. Sometimes I put a lot of pressure on myself to make the relationship go well, or like the friendship or something like that. I'd say like for the most part I stick out of my head because I feel like I've grown to a point, at least like at this point. Like it was different in middle school, I think, but like where I'm really comfortable with myself, and I think like that I'm likable enough for some people, and for some people I'm not, and then I'm just not meant to like talk to those people or be friends with those people. And I think that's a mindset that really like got me out of my head. But I definitely think if it's like, if there's some people that I'm like, I feel pressure on being friends with, for example, like a mutual friend or something like that. Like, let's say one of my friends has like a really good friend, and it's like we're gonna need to hang out all the time, and I put pressure on the relationship. I think I do get a lot more in my head. Or if it's like a teacher that I feel like I need to impress, I'm like, oh no, like I need to
Yeah.
like watch what I say. But I think otherwise, I don't think so. I think that like I've grown to a point of confidence where it's like they'll like me if they do, and they won't if they don't.
Did it change for you at a certain point? Like, was it like after middle school where you like you weren't in your head as much?
I think so. Like in middle school, I felt like I didn't have a lot of friends. Like it was the same squad that you know. And I had like Carly, and I felt like she was like my only friend in middle school. And I don't remember why the shift happened, but when we went to Parker and we came to a new school, I think it was my chance to have a fresh start. And for me, I felt like I really needed that for myself. And I think I was so much more authentic and like confident when I came into a new school without all these people who already knew me and already had an opinion about me, that I like was able to be myself, I guess. And then that brought me confidence after I found that I could still make friends.
Yeah.
And I think another thing, like my whole life, that's definitely affected that is like, do you know AJ? You know AJ and Kylie?
Yeah.
So like ever since I was 5 years old, I've had like this whole like second family and second support system, and like these two friends, no matter what. And I think that like going to a new place was so much less scary, because even if I didn't have any friends there, I couldn't make friends immediately. I always had them, and I always had like my best friends. And I think that that allowed me to be a lot more explorative and confident with my personality.
With Agent and Kylie, did do you just remember being friends with them since you were since consciousness, or since you were a kid, or yeah?
Yeah, it's like we started being friends because our moms would run the book fair together. And so we'd have to hang out together after the book fair in kindergarten. And we didn't like each other at first, but then we were the only people we knew in our first grade class, and we had no other friends. And then starting in that point, we just became super close. And I think it's become such a familial relationship, like a sibling relationship. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes I'm closer to one twin and sometimes I'm closer to the other twin, and they always tell me the hard things, and we argue sometimes, but I think that it's so family that I know no matter what that I will have them. And so yeah, for as long as I can remember, I've been they've been there in my life, which is really freeing.
Yeah. And do you think it has been this way because your mom has a close relationship with their mom?
I think at first, yes. I think at first it was because our moms are friends, and now it's our parents are friends because of us. They're still friends, and they still hang out. We do a lot of things as a family. I think, and I don't really know exactly. I can't really speak to it, but I think both of our parents saw just how good we were for each other. And I don't think we would still be friends if our parents didn't make an effort to make that happen, because they moved away in 4th grade. And we were okay, if they move away, we have to see each other every single weekend. And our parents were okay, sure. And we were only friends since kindergarten at this point. You don't know if this is really a friendship you should be putting time into, and it's your kid can make friends at their new school. But our parents, I think, recognized something, I'm not really sure what, but made that effort for us, because at that point they still had to drive us to each other's houses and all of that. But both of our families were very committed to making sure our friendship happened. And I think that was a cycle.
I'm interested in how a familial relationship versus a friendship, or it's not you don't treat someone kind of as family. It's different. And you mentioned how you guys say the hard things, and you argue sometimes, and that's very much family. But then there's a different dimension. For me, it's if I argue with my family, it's not that makes it me have a better relationship with them necessarily. And I don't necessarily want to be arguing with my friends, but I do want to be honest with my friends, and that might require arguing, but it's hard to.
Yeah.
And so where do you think that comes from? How does that work?
I mean, I think the honest but unhelpful answer is it comes from the fact that they're twins, and I've always responded to and observed their dynamic, and they have a very twin sister, always butting heads, always competing with each other kind of dynamic. But it's all rooted in love, obviously. And I think that when I was added into the mix, it was a new competition with me of who was the closer twin and stuff like that. And then I think I kind of just integrated into that a little bit. But I do think that there are some other friends that I have in my life that I treat as family, like you or Vicky. I do think sometimes you're right, where it's hard to say things that the other person doesn't want to hear, because you don't want them to think that you're judging them or that you think differently about them. And it's it really is all for the better of everybody. But I think that relationship formed like, I think it all comes from vulnerability. Like, if you're able to open up to me and, like, tell me something, or, like, admit something or confess something, then I think I'm able to, like, respond to that, I guess. And I think it comes from how vulnerable the friendship is and how, like, I guess secure you are in the value it is to both people. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does.
Yeah, sort of. I remember when we were after like the Torrey Pines senior house concert. We went to like we had lunch or something with like the band at some like Mexican place or someplace. I don't know what type of restaurant it was, and I remember like you said like I've never argued with Ryan. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, I've never argued with Keira. Like, I've never really had any conflict with Keira. And I don't know if that's, like, an unhealthy thing. And I don't know.
Have you ever felt the need to argue with me? Like, has there been, like, honestly, has there ever been something that I've done that you're like, I want to tell her not to do this, but I can't? Or I want to tell her I don't agree with this, but I can't?
I mean, I think when you were dating, I was like, what is she doing? but and like when, like, I sometimes, like, wonder about your personality. But I never, like, I think it never came to me to be, like, to tell you that you're doing something wrong or, like, you're being... like you're doing something that is not right, like that it would conflict with me necessarily. It was kind of just you living your own life, which is cool and it's fine. And so I don't think I was ever like angry with you. I was just like confused maybe. Only.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been angry with you because I feel like, well, one, I think you're the best listener I know, which is why I like love that you're podcasting, because I think it's so suitable for who you are, and I think you're just a generally curious person about other people. And I think for me and our friendship and the dynamic, how that plays out, I always feel like comfortable telling you things because of that dynamic, because I feel like you won't approach it from a point of like, oh, this is not how I would do things, or, oh, this conflicts with my opinions about things, but you always approach things, or, like, in all of our conversations and whatnot, in a sense of, like, let me understand why she's doing it this way. And I think, like, this is probably going to get counterintuitive, but when I'm talking to my parents or my dad sometimes, or, like, we're arguing, I think sometimes it's approached from a way of, he's saying, this is how I would do it, and I'm saying, this is how I'm doing it. And we butt heads because of that. And same with, like, AJ or Kylie. It's like, ooh, like, here, this is not a good idea because of XYZ. And I feel like in whatever conversations that you and I have had, it's always like, well, let me understand why you think this way and your point. And I think that for me, has always been, like, a point of like, we just haven't had disagreement because of it, I think. And I think that you are very articulate about your feelings. And I've always felt like I've understood where you're coming from, like, everything that you do or perceive. And so I think in that sense, we just haven't argued. But I think that in a different way, it doesn't mean we aren't. Like, I don't think that speaks to us not being as close. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think I would feel comfortable if you really did something that I'm like, I don't know if this is a good decision. I think I would feel comfortable telling you, like, I don't agree with this, and this is why. You know? But I just haven't come to that point, because I feel like every time I think about doing that, and I don't even know if I have an example for you, but like, when I do think about it, it's like you convince me otherwise with your way of comprehending things.
Yeah. I feel like there's is there a good example of argument where it's something you felt good about arguing, or like a positive part of a relationship? Because I really wonder if argument is ever necessary or conflict is necessary, or like, and how it kind of differs from just like disagreeing with someone.
Yeah. I think argument can be productive. My favorite analogy to use, which my therapist told me and I've told like so many people since, is that like when something bothers you, like think of your like relationship with someone as like a nice living room. And when something bothers you and you sweep it under the rug, it just grows. Like the dust bunnies just grow. And then something else will bother you related to that and you'll sweep it under the rug again. Yeah. And then soon you'll have this like really ugly, lumpy rug in this living room. And I think that sometimes you're dealing with somebody that's not going to agree with you right away. Like, for example, AJ is super strong-minded. Like, she's very strong-minded. And, like, I love it because it makes her really confident in her opinions and whatnot. But I know that if I, like I know we can be, like, very argument-prone about things. But I think that both of us are to the point where it could be a productive argument because we will, like, listen to each other. And I'll be like, oh, like, I didn't think of something that way. Like, I think the argument is productive when you're not afraid to lose. Does that make sense? When the point of the argument is to win the argument, it's, like, kind of stupid on both sides because both of you can't win.
Yeah.
But if the point of the argument is to change something, I think it can be really productive.
Yeah. I often find myself in, like, with my family, usually with my dad or my mom, it's like I find myself like thinking that I'm doing this. I'm like having a disagreement with them because I have the better opinion, and then I realize I'm just trying to prove to them why they're wrong, and maybe I am right, but it doesn't like help at all, and it usually doesn't feel good either.
I do that all the time. Like, that's the way I approach every argument with my parents because I don't know, I feel like it comes from a place of defense. Like, if I'm feeling like you're attacking me for something that I'm doing, I have to prove to you why I'm right. Even if somewhere along the line I realize that I'm not, I have to prove that I'm right.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to the thinking thing in relationships, I think I figured out like the past year as I've thought about relationships that I am too mental when it comes to interacting with people, such that it's hard for me to express like my immediate feelings or my immediate thoughts without like going through a filter. And by the time that filter is done, it's like the conversation has moved on, or like I can't, or it's weird if I say it. And so, but the other part of it is like if I don't think and I just live and interact, however like my gut instinct is gonna take me, it's like what's gonna happen, and it's almost like, is this like free will? Like, am I choosing to do this, or is something else happening here? I don't know if that makes sense.
A little bit.
Like, do you feel like you have agency when you do choose to just kind of like be yourself and not think at all when you're engaging in interactions, or
that makes sense?
Or is it like just happening?
I feel like sometimes no. I think like I'm the type of person in group settings like where I'll like laugh too loud, or I'll like add something that maybe wasn't entirely related. I think I do get like awkward when it's like a like a group, like 6 people, let's say, and everybody's like forced to talk and engage. Because I think if it's like a really big group, if there are like 12 people, everybody's kind of breaking off into their own conversation. But if it's like one conversation, I do think that like I often catch myself afterward and I'm like, I shouldn't have said that, or like that wasn't the right thing to react to in the moment. And I think for me, that's when I try to like filter myself, and or I'll like get a little bit quieter. I think that it's really important for me to have certain people that I am entirely comfortable around. And like, for example, in Happy Sound, I'm entirely comfortable with you, with Vicky, with Jason, with Bridge, and with Kyber. Which is why when it's a group setting, I don't feel the need to filter myself. I don't feel the need to say other things, because I know that each of these people individually, I can like say whatever to, and that they won't like judge me based on that. And I think that's why it helps for me to like build these individual relationships outside of a group, and like learn that I can just say whatever to you. And even if I can't really control it, that it's like, it's okay. And that I can trust that you're doing that back to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right, where sometimes I do feel like I lose control over what I'm saying in like a big group setting, so I tend to just like get quiet. But when it's one-on-one or a group of people that I'm really comfortable with, I'm able to like let that go.
Yeah. And when it's like you're in class, like you're in Gov, for example, and you react or say something in class, like to Dr. Wilson, or like in the group setting, like to everyone answering a question, do you feel like you're filtering what's going through your mind, or do you feel like you're just comfortable to say what's up?
I think both. Like before I raise my hand, I'm gonna like think about it, but at the same time, I think I've identified and recognized that space in that class as a space where he truly just wants to hear our authentic opinion. And I think people say things in that class all the time that other people think is problematic or like may not agree with. And so I guess for me that sense creates a sense of comfort of like, well, if I just say it and it's like problematic, it's okay, because that's kind of the type of conversation that we want to approach and fix. And so I think that like, yes, I do think, and I do like try to filter myself, but not as much as like another class maybe. Like this is a different example because it's like literally in Spanish, but like in Spanish class, I'm not gonna raise my hand unless I know exactly what I'm gonna say, because I feel like it's not a space to like use a bunch of incorrect grammar and be okay. Versus Gov like is a space to say things that might not be true, but it's productive.
Yeah. Okay.
I think like it all comes back to like identifying and recognizing for yourself or for myself like what's a space of comfort for me. And the more that you're able to let your filter down kind of and just talk, I think the more comfortable you get with your own ideas and opinions, you know? And that like eventually that will translate over to a bigger scale. And I think I've tried to like identify that for myself.
Do you think that being introverted or extroverted plays into how you kind of live out your identity? Is there like an impulse in you that you think differs from other people?
I think so, just because like, I guess the definition of extroversion is like you get your energy from other people, I think, right?
Yeah.
That's like what it means. So I think it definitely helps because it means that, like, I'm not going to be drained by these interactions, you know? And that they actually, like, are doing the opposite for me, which makes me want to have more of them, which makes me, in general, I feel like, just like a people person. But I don't think it's like a positive or negative thing, you know what I mean? It's just like a thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, for introverts, because introverts, if they're not getting energy by interacting with people, then how are... Because everyone wants human connection to some degree, and everyone wants to, I guess, spend time with other people, probably. So for introverts, is it a negative quality to be introverted? Because it takes away from an incentive to be... Because I also wonder if it's draining energy from you, then...
Well, you want to, like, do it.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair line of thought, but I don't think that that necessarily translates to true. Like, my mom is, like, the biggest introvert I know, but she, like, loves hanging out with us, like my family, or like her sister. And I think to a certain point, everybody like needs, like you said, human connection. And it's like there's, and I'm not really sure if this is true, but from what I've observed in my mom, there's like a circle of people that she can always be around and that like will not drain her energy. And then there's pretty much everybody else is outside that circle. And so she chooses her time with those people outside her circle. But like when it comes to the people inside her circle, it like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, there's this concept that I came across recently, which is being needy. And like there's an article by Mark Manson who wrote this article about, I think it's titled "Fuck Yes or No."
Okay.
But it's basically like, don't go engage in relationships where the other person is not, that you're not like fuck yes about, and the other person's not fuck yes about. It's not necessarily just like a relationship, but it also be just like getting to know someone. Like, are you fuck yes about this or no?
Like,
And
are you like super enthusiastic? Like, don't go pursuing things that the other. Wait. Can you explain it?
yeah, it's like, don't go pursuing things. It's in the context of dating.
Okay.
But it also applies to everything, I think, where it's like, if you're pursuing someone who doesn't actually like want or like you or care about you or want to have a relationship with you that much, and you're like you're like doing that, and you're like spending energy doing that, then it's like you shouldn't do that, because you're not going anywhere. But and it's like that kind of represents the concept of being needy, like needing stuff that probably isn't like gonna be good for you or productive for two people.
Yeah.
So when it comes to just need, like in relationship, you need, and with other people, I guess you are like getting something from them and they're getting something from you. But when does it become like, when do you think it becomes needy? Like you're just being like you're just doing something bad for you or the other person.
I think like, well, for me, I'd say I'm a pretty needy person. Like in general, like in friendships and in relationships. Like, I'm the type of person that like always needs to be with somebody. Like, and you know this about me, but I think it's something that I do need to work on, because I do need to be okay being alone. But like, I will try and fill every second of my day with somebody. And it's like, but at the same time, on the reverse end of that, I'm not gonna like beg somebody to hang out with me. Does that make sense? Like, I think I will always be I'm always happy to be the person asking first and inviting first, and like being like, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? But if you say no, I feel like that is like, I need to respect it. Or like, I'm busy. I'm like, okay. Because I think kind of similar to how like I think what the book was saying is like, if I'm somewhere with somebody and I get the sense that they don't want to be there or they don't want to hang out with me, that for me is a super like anxious, awful feeling. And I think for everybody, it's an awful feeling. But I think I'm very insecure in that sense of like, when I'm hanging out with someone, like I want to make sure that they want to be hanging out with me. And I need to make sure that they're not like getting tired and wanting to go home and things like that. Like I wouldn't never want to force someone to hang out with me. And maybe this comes from like an incessant need to be liked. And I feel like if I'm forcing you to hang out with me, you don't like me. Like, even if it's like you're tired, I just like get the sense of you don't like me. So I guess I didn't answer your original question of like, when is it neediness, or when do you like, but I think it is neediness when the other person is not happy to give what they're giving.
Yeah. Like sort of when it's not reciprocated or reciprocal.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that like the way that I cope with things like that is I like just go like I feel like I have a lot of friends, but not like a lot of really deep friendships. And I think that that's changed a lot this year. But I think at least previously it was like, okay, well, if this person isn't free, like then I have another person to call up, and that's like so much better. And I think that I am in a sense hurting my other friendships by doing that, because I'm not putting like in proper time and investment into like the important friends, and instead like spreading it out to make sure I always have somebody to be with. And I do think that that's like hurted a couple friendships of mine that I haven't been able to prioritize.
Yeah. Okay. For me, it's been kind of weird thinking about being needy. And like, for me, when I went into high school and probably just like throughout childhood, there's this like feeling like I don't want to be selfish. And that's like a quality that it's kind of like agreed upon, like don't be selfish. And ideally you want to be generous and like give to other people. And in religion, I think where I derive like my possible sense of purpose or direction was being moral. So like doing good things and being good. And I found it really hard to reconcile that in talking to people or being friends with other people, because at the root of a lot of it is like a need inside to want to be loved and like want to be seen, I guess. So when I try to apply not being selfish to relationships or human connection, it was like, I think it was counterintuitive or counterproductive or bad, because I was like, I wanted something like in conversation when you like choose to say something because you want the other person to hear it, and then it's almost like a selfish motive that I felt. And so that kind of like distorted my view of like talking with other people or hanging out, and I guess being needy to some extent, or just being open about what your needs are. And I wonder Have you ever thought about it like that? Like, just, I'm, like you said that you've realized kind of like, just like, you need to spend some time with yourself or not spend the whole day with everyone. But does it translate to like selfishness or some sort of moral imbalance for you?
I think yes, but in a different way. Like, I've always felt like, because of just like my accident and different things with my mental health, I've always been like I felt like I've since been a really burdensome person to be a close friend with, because I have because sometimes I'll be going through something that I feel like if I opened up to somebody, I don't really know what they could say to help me. And I know that that's like an awful feeling for somebody to be super vulnerable and you don't know what to do to help them. And so because of things like that, I feel like let me backtrack that sentence. I think like for me, I always feel relationships, friendships, everything should be 50-50. Like, they open up to me about their problems. I open up to them. We talk things out. I get this from them. They get this from me. And that is something like, first off, to kind of go on what you said at the beginning, it's like very reassuring to me to be needed. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, if somebody is having a hard day and they call me, that is like the most reassuring thing in a friendship for me. Or if somebody is like having a good day and they want to celebrate, like taking them to frozen yogurt or getting them like a bouquet of flowers, to me is the most reassuring thing, because I feel like in that moment very needed. And because of that, it allows me to need them. Mm-hmm. And I think people are the right people are very, very happy to give. And I'll always feel like I'm the one who needs more in a relationship or a friendship or anything, just because I feel like sometimes my issues can be burdensome. And so when somebody needs me, I find it very validating. And that's like the conversation that allows me to need them. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think like I agree with parts of what you're saying, in that like relationships and friendships in general can feel like selfish. Like, oh, I need this person to like support me, and I need this person to do this for me. But I think like on the flip side, it's like, so do they. Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm. And I think that lets me come out of that mindset.
Yeah. With like our relationship, I've noticed how like the past couple years, like from middle school to now, it was almost like always you were the one who was I don't know if this is how you felt, but this is how I felt, which is like you were aggressively pursuing like a friendship with me, and I felt that like I never really thought of it like you being needy, but like I was really confused because I was like, what did I do? What did I give her? Like, I was scared. I think I'm scared to give to, because it almost like gives the expectation for you to give to me. But that's why I felt like really, I feel like it felt different for me, and it felt really special to me, like you actively like texting me or like being like, do you want to do this, or like talking to me at school. But I think I've come to realize that that's like a natural part of a relationship, and it's a good thing to like want to be needy, or not needy is Maybe is not the right word.
Well, it has a negative correlation, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think first off, I've never felt like I was like I feel like I've never had to try to be friends with you. I've always like, it's just been a thing and it's just been natural. And it's obviously something that I'm like is something that I wouldn't give up. Of course, like our friendship is very, very important to me, and having you is very, very important to me. And I think that like sometimes, or I think this just speaks to like inviting somebody to do something, I don't know how to say this, like isn't needy. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I like for me, if like I ask us to go on a walk, and I know I'm always the one canceling our walks because of XYZ, but like if I ask somebody to go on a walk and like if I ask us to go for a walk like 5 times, and then like the next week, one time you tell me like, hey, I'm really thinking about this, or I'm really confused about this, can we talk it out? That for me makes the whole like me asking to go for a walk like worth it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
Like, does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
I don't think that answered the question at all, but
it's like if I were to express like something I want to talk to you about, then you're not just asking to go on a walk just to go on a walk. It's like I need something from you, and so it's like not, so it feels more reciprocal.
Yeah, it's like all those, yeah, exactly. It's like all those other times I asked to go to a walk, like I needed to talk something out, or I needed to do this, and I needed to do that. And then like one time, like you needing to talk about something is like so like validating to me. It's like, oh, like, yeah, like of course. And I think like, well, especially with our relationship, and I feel like especially with you, and I know I already said this, but like I've always felt like everything that I've said to you is something that you've wanted to hear. Like you want to listen to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's such an important quality, because sometimes I'll be hanging out with someone and I feel like they like could care less about what I have to say, you know, and that's totally fine too. Yeah. But it's just like, then it's hard for me to ask them for things because I feel like they don't want me to. And I feel like you've always been the person to make me feel like, even if it was my idea or my plan, that you want to be there, that you want to talk to me. And I think that that's a very good quality. And I think it's like a great quality to be able to apply like to everybody. Because like I feel like whenever you have conversations with anybody, it's like you want to be there. And I think that translates very well, and not into a sense of neediness. Mm-hmm. I think it's like the reciprocal.
Yeah. Thanks. D'Onofrio was saying how the people that you, like, those are your people. It's like the people who you don't feel like you need to not say something or filter out for. Like you can just say anything or just be whoever you are. Those are like your people, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree.
On the, like, I've always been a little confused about saying thank you or thanks, and also saying bye. I feel like saying hi is a little easier for me, but saying bye, or like knowing what to do when you do say goodbye, and then also when you say like thanks, like what is the connotation behind that? Those are kind of like two separate things. But we can start on either one.
Wait, can you give me an example of the thank you one?
Yeah. So I think this has something to do with selfishness. Like when you say thank you, you're telling the other person
that they gave you something.
They gave you something, and it's like, oh, And maybe what makes me feel bad is because I feel like I need to give something to them in return, or I'm like in debt.
I think something that I've, like, let's say like I was like crying or like having a breakdown, and I'm like calling somebody or like texting somebody or something like that, and the conversation ends, or like somebody gives me a compliment. Like I think, well, first off, I think compliments are super uncomfortable in general. I don't know how to approach this, and I don't know like how that like works. But when it comes to like somebody does something for you, or like you feel like they're doing something for you, or they're giving you something, I think like I've changed the conversation in my mind from like thank you to like I appreciate you. And it's like, I think like that telling somebody you appreciate them is like, well, at least for me, if I'm like doing something for somebody, or somebody needs something from me, and then they say like, oh, thank you, or like, I really appreciated that, or something like that. To me, like, that's what the whole thing was for, you know? Like, the whole... And I think it goes back to the whole thing of, like, you need me, I need you. And I don't think that that's something that has to be repaid, but also, I am in the same mindset as you when it comes to like compliments. When somebody's like, oh, your outfit's really cute today, thank you, like so is yours. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to repay that, so I like will try to be the one who compliments first, just because I don't want to like end up in that, or I'll be like, your hair looks really good today, and that's how I like cope with it. But I do think that we have to get to a point of like, people can do nice things for us and say nice things for us, and all we have to do is say thank you. And like know that like when the time comes around, we'll do the same thing back. And I think that the other person who's like doing the nice thing for us knows that. Like, I'm not gonna like go out of my way and do like a really nice thing for somebody who I feel like would never ever do that for me, unless like they actually like can't or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
But if I feel like you like don't even think of me that way, or like wouldn't do this or that, and it's not like, I don't want it to mean like I keep a tally and everything has to be like I do for you what you would do for me, but it's just a sense of I wouldn't want to go out of my way for you unless I knew you would do the same for me. And I feel like that knowledge is like enough of a thank you.
That was wise.
You're wise. There we go.
Yeah, with compliments, it's really weird when, like, if you say like, if you return the compliment with the same thing, it's like, I wouldn't have said that unless you told me the compliment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is really uncomfortable, but I also think it's one of those things that like people don't think that much about. If somebody's like complimenting you on like your shoes or something, you say thanks, you too. It's like, oh, like that's like part of it, you know what I mean? And sometimes it just makes me feel better to have said the you too part, and I know that they don't like really care about it, so it's satisfying one of my needs without affecting them at all, you know?
Yeah. I came to this like big realization when I was listening to a podcast, or I just like listened to start, and then the podcast host said nice to meet you, and then the guest said nice to meet you, and then I paused and I was like, wait, I realized that they didn't like mean nice to meet you. It wasn't like nice to meet you, like I'm so happy to see you. It wasn't like that. It was just like kind of like a way of speech, like they probably were happy to see each other.
Term. Wait, maybe that's not a colloquialism. Is that like a term?
That might be.
I don't know. It's just like a phrase. Yeah.
Yeah, like a colloquial.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, maybe it's not, but it's like nice to say that, or it's just like the way to get things going, and then you also say like, how are you, and like I'm good, and it's not like you, because this is from Manchester by the Sea, and it's like they were on the phone, and then the person was like, "How are you?" He's like, "Good," and he's like, "How are you?" And he's like, "Good," and then like a minute later, she's like, "How are you?" And then I think you've done this before. Like you asked me, "How are you?" twice, and then he's like, "Well, I'm not so good." Like, and I was like, "Well, you just said you were good like a minute ago," but it's kind of just like a way of speech. So I wonder, like, do you think about those? Do you think about that when you're talking to other people, or does it come naturally when you are speaking?
I think it again depends on my comfort level. Like if Vicky were to call me up and be like, "Hey, like, how are you?" I would probably tell her like, "Oh, I'm not great. This is going on."
Mm-hmm.
But if it's like somebody that I don't really like, I've just met, or is like more of an acquaintance, or is a friend but just not that close, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, like things are going good. What about you?" And I think it's just like comes from like kind of what we were talking about earlier about like the filter and how many layers of filter we're going through. And I think the closer we get to the surface, the more like the happier and like the just like overall okay and like good it is. And so I think that at that point it's just like subconscious. It's just like, oh, I don't really know you, so this is something I'm gonna say, or I'm gonna say like, I'll like try to compliment you on this, or I'm like trying to do this to please you, or like to get you to like me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When it comes to saying bye to someone, or like you're like leaving, I always find it like I don't know what to say. Like, is this the end of our conversation, or this is the end of our interaction? And then it's like what you were saying about like needing to spend every minute of the day with someone. Like the moment when you leave the person or you're not with them anymore, does it disturb you, or like does it make you feel weird in any way?
I think like I always want the goodbye to be good, because I feel like if we've had like a good time and then like we have a really not good like goodbye, like it is definitely something that will sit with me after.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, oh no, we like talked about this, but then like they like, I guess all I'm trying to say is that I always try to end things with like an affirmation, like goodbye, this was nice, or like goodbye, like I appreciate you, or like goodbye, like I'll see you soon, or like goodbye, I can't wait to see you soon, like something like that. But I don't like, I think it's more about the tone of the whole interaction than anything else, you know what I mean? I don't think I put too much pressure on it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm still trying to figure out that one. Just like, I don't know, I've always thought it strange, the feeling I get when I say bye, and then the feeling of like the moment, like then like being alone or not like with somebody after. It's like, I don't know if it's like positive or negative, or if I'm just thinking about or overthinking it too much.
I think I definitely have some people where the minute I'm like out of their house, I'm like, was that a good interaction? Like, did that go well? And then I'll think about it all, like the whole drive home. I'll be like, but this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And I think that I definitely do have those relationships in my life where on the way home, or like the minute after the goodbye, I don't feel good about things. And it's something I'm working on, because sometimes the whole like interaction will have been like totally positive, and then the whole time at home I convinced myself like that it wasn't. But I think just trying to move to a point of security, because I definitely do have a lot of friends that I'm secure with, like after when I get in my car and I'll like drive home and I'll put my music on and I'll be like, this was so nice, like this was so lovely. Mm-hmm. And I'll just like be happy on the way home. So I think it just comes from a place of insecurity about those relationships. Like if I'm insecure about our relationship, I am, the minute after is going to feel like just like very overthought. But it's just about, for me, working towards being like really secure.
Yeah.
With those people.
Okay. On the point of music, like you said, you were listening to music in your car on the way back, and just choosing or liking different artists or songs or listening to music. How do you do it?
Like, how do I pick?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, for me, I feel like when it comes to pop culture, like when it comes to movies or when it comes to like news or like the media or like a meme on TikTok, like things like that, like the current like culture, I guess, I don't consume a lot of media. I don't read the news a lot. I don't watch a lot of movies, like pretty much ever. And I don't like have TikTok and things like that. Like I feel like in other senses of media or pop culture, I'm very like out. So it's hard to have like conversations on those things. Like the other day with like Ian, Kenny, and like Avanish and everybody, when we were talking about movies, I was like, this is so lost on me because like I have no idea what we're talking about. So for me, music is the media that I am like always keeping up with, always listening to, and I think it just comes from a point of like, it's just like easy for me to always be listening to music, and I love music. Like music is such a huge part of my life in the way like that I connect with my mom, and in the way that I like in the viola and everything like that. Music just means a lot to me. And so I feel like it's been I don't know if it was even a conscious thing, but it's just like the venue of media I choose to consume to keep up with pop culture. And I feel like everybody, like most people like have a different one. Like some people read the news all the time and then they are able to speak on that. And a lot of people watch a lot of movies. And so that's connection. But I just listen to so much music and like whether that be listening to just like the top hits and then figuring out what I like from there. Like what has always, I guess, kept me into listening to all these new songs is like playlists. Like I'll curate my own of the top songs because I probably don't like every single top song. I really don't. But then like of them, which ones do I like? Which artists do I follow? And making an effort to consume that media. I guess. Does that make sense? That was like a long-winded answer.
That does. Well, I remember we were like driving back from something, and it was like me, you, and Vicky in the car, and I don't know if you remember this. You guys were singing on the car, and I was sitting there like just like what's going on? And then I remember one song was like Stick Season.
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah, and you guys were just like singing it together. I was like, wow, that seems like a cool thing to be connected with people or someone else with. But I've tried since, not just from that moment, but just in general, like knowing that people like music and they listen to music, to try and listen to music. And I have a theory about why I don't really like jam with music as much now, which is that the lyrics, I think I attribute too much importance to the lyrics. And so like after listening to worship music for like 2 straight years, like the point of worship is kind of like to connect with God and to glorify God. And so you want the lyrics to be meaningful. And then now I listen to like these songs like Stick Season, where he's like I drink alcohol or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like your mom forgot that I existed or
Yeah.
something. I'm like, what is What is this supposed to mean? Am I supposed to like understand this stuff, or is it just the sound of it that is supposed to be cool?
I think
Or
it
like
comes to
fun?
both. I think like I don't know if this is like a correct answer, but like how like movie enjoyers have that one app where they rate all their movies. Do you know what app that is? I forget what it's called. Shoot, I literally...
Rotten Tomatoes.
No, it's like the...
I'm.
I'll find it.
Okay.
It's like the one... And I feel like Spotify... This is such a... not unrelated answer. But I think like a big thing is like... Especially Vicky and I, we have a shared playlist. And every song on that, like, I know it's like one, she's like, oh, this is a good song, let me add it. And I do think, like, I put a lot of emphasis on the lyrics, but not, like, the most. You know, like, if it's a good song and I don't like the lyrics, I'll still add it. Most of the time, though, I do, like, pick a song because I relate to it in some way, or, like, I like the lyrics in some way. But I guess, like you said, sometimes, like, a lot of times it just doesn't make sense. But also... like, I think it's really hard to force yourself to like different types of music if you don't like it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of types of music that I don't, like, love. And no matter how much I listen to it, I'm like, okay, this is just not my jam. But I think it definitely helps, like, having a friend who has, like, the same music taste as you, or, like, even if they don't have the exact same music taste, there's gonna be parts that, like, intersect.
Mm-hmm. So with Stick Season, for example, do you feel like you relate to the lyrics in the song?
No. But the emotion. It's just like the general, like, desperation and longing. I'm like, oh, this is such a good one. And it's so easy to sing with, like, passion. You know what I mean? But I don't think I relate to the lyrics that much. But I do think that, like, a lot of songs are meant to be intellectualized, but a lot of songs are not meant to be intellectualized. And it's, like, sometimes hard to, like, do that. But I think that, like, figuring out what type of music, like, the sounds that you like is important. And then in that genre, you can find so many songs that, like, speak to you and that the lyrics are there.
Like, if you took all the songs that you liked and you gave them to me and I listened through all of them, like, how many of the songs you think I would like? Or do you think you can't predict that?
I don't know. Because, like, if we're thinking lyric-wise, maybe not many. But hopefully there'd be a couple that, like, would spark your interest in, like, the sounds, you know? And I feel like I have a very, I don't know, like, I think that would be an interesting thing to do. We could create a shared playlist and put stuff in it and, like, try and curate it. I think just listening to, like, a massive amount of music helps with that, too.
I feel kind of lost when it comes to music. Like, I feel like I'm missing that from my life when everyone else has it. And because I know what enjoying music feels like, because when I was in middle school, I listened to music and I got into music, like listening to pop or Juice World, rap.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I liked it. I would, like, take, like, the songs and, like, put it on YouTube and just, like, on repeat, like, 3 times, or not 3 times. That's, like, I just, like, throughout, just, like, doing it because I enjoyed it. I don't think I thought about the lyrics too much. But then now I feel like my taste for music has kind of been messed up because of listening to worship music. And
it's just also such a fast moving, like, I don't think all media is like this. If you like come out for a little bit, like everything has changed in some way. And like the type of songs that are popular and the artists that are popular in just like a year or just two is like super hard. Same with like the news, or same with like the movies, like, you know, same with all types of media. I think if you come out of it a little bit, it's like everything changes so fast, and that's just signature of pop culture.
yeah.
So I like can see how it could be hard to like get back into.
Say that there weren't any people in the world, it was just you living on Earth, and you had your music. Does that change the songs that you listen to, or do you think you would still enjoy it? Like, is music part of the is it part of the culture, and like or is it like individual enjoyment?
I think it's both. I think I would still like the music that I like for the most part. Maybe there's like a couple songs that I'd be like, yeah, I've actually always hated this song. But I think I'm not going to listen to something unless I don't like it. And the beauty of music to me is that there's so much of it, you know, and that you're going to find things that you like that are really popular, things that you like that are really underground, just by merit of how much there is.
Okay. Something I've always wondered about with you is...
Can I go to the restroom?
Yeah, you can.
Is that okay?
That's fine. Yeah, we can take a break now if you want.
Can I go pee?
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't want you to say it, and then I like couldn't. I was
That's
like,
fine.
wait, I do really need to go pee. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Perfect. We're back. Oh, great. Sorry.
I was going to ask you about... The thing I was wondering was, how do you think about discipline or making sure you do things? And I guess I don't know this, but I feel like you like do school and you like make sure you like do well in all your classes and turn in your assignments on time. But is there ever like a point where you're like, you like questioning whether this is good, or if you want to do this, or if you don't, or if you start slacking, or has that never happened?
I think if it's okay, can I talk about this in the scope of school and in the scope of viola?
Yeah.
Because I think discipline's a big one for me there. I think, okay, for school, I'm trying to think about how I want to word this. Like, I think I get a lot of validation in general from achievement. Like, I think a lot of people do, but I think I put a lot of weight on if I'm not getting like A's, then like this says something about me. And I think I'm such a firm believer in like, wait, this makes me sound like it's like true, but I think I believe about myself that I can truly do like anything I want to if I just like work hard enough. And I think that that's like a mindset hopefully a lot of people have, and that like it's generally a good mindset, right? Because it's like the world is limitless to you if you just work hard enough. And I think that comes from having immigrant parents too. Like the value of like working hard and like always like doing your best and trying your hardest and things like that. And I for sure have felt moments, okay, I don't think I felt that until like this year, because it's like senior year and I feel like it doesn't matter as much, but of like, I don't really want to try this hard, like what's the point of trying this hard? But on the whole, I've always felt like effort is like, maybe this is a better way to put it. I will always want to put in effort if I see the reward. Does that make sense? Like if I try in this class and I get an A, which has been the case for like I've always felt like in school, if I try, it'll like be represented on the paper with my grade. And so I will always pick to try and to work hard at something if the result that I'm getting back is what I want and what I expect and what I'm trying for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in the academic sense, I haven't been discouraged because I see that like response and reward, and it's coming back and it's giving me like the positive affirmation and it's rewarding me. And then I'm like, okay, I'll like study a bunch and then I'll get this good grade and that's a reward, and then I'll study more and so that cycle for me, I think I've never really lost motivation because it's like I'm trying and I'm succeeding, so I'm trying again and so I'm succeeding again. And that is a cycle that's extremely validating for me. I think I definitely lose sight of that discipline in other areas. Like the areas that I feel you're very disciplined in, like the waking up early and like the running and the working out and the exercising and like the making sure you're living a healthy, balanced lifestyle and the eating and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where when it comes to things like that, if I don't like see an immediate result, I tend to drop it. And that comes from, like, I guess this whole instant gratification thing, and everybody says it's something wrong with our generation, and it's, like, a whole thing of, like, if I'm running every day and I don't feel myself getting fitter, I'll, like, get frustrated and be like, okay, what's the point of running? And I think that's, like, an easy example because that's something that takes so much time to build up your endurance, to like, get fit. And so it's, like, things like that are very discouraging for me. And then I guess I said, well, I guess this is, like, a little bit unrelated now. But, like, in the viola sense, in, like, relearning it and, like, having to, like, pick it up and know what it's supposed to sound like and know that I don't sound like that and know that I'm restarting is, like, a double-edged sword because it's both, like, the discouragement and the lack of discipline that's like you're practicing this much and you don't sound the way that you should and you know you don't sound the way that you should, but also the other side of like this is such a huge challenge. Imagine the accomplishment when you surmount it. So I think that's like a big thing for me is like the achievement part of it and the will I get what I'm working towards. But I don't know if that's always a healthy relationship because I think for me in terms of viola, I've like lost a lot of passion that I had, and I think I've still like maintained the discipline only because I see that achievement as such a huge one that I really want, but it's definitely made it a lot less fun when I think of it in terms of I need to do this so I can achieve this versus I'm just gonna play.
Do you think your lack of passion comes from like your hand?
Mm-hmm.
So like if you hadn't like lost your fingers, then you would have just continued with a sense of passion?
I think so. I think in general it's very discouraging for me to not get what I want, and when I'm just practicing and I'm relearning and I'm trying so hard and I'm reading the sheet music and still I just don't sound how I want, slowly like it's just sapping all that motivation. And I think that like I was kind of saying, like I can be very disciplined when it comes to the day-to-day stuff. When it comes to I studied for this test today, I get an A tomorrow. And yeah, when it comes to that stuff, but when it comes to being disciplined over the lifetime, over like a few years, over like a while like that, I'm very, like it's very hard for me to stay disciplined. If it's like, okay, but if I practice every day, imagine how much better I'll be in a year. But even to the point of like, tomorrow I'm still not going to sound like how I once did. And the next day I'm still not going to sound like how I once did. And the next day I still won't. And even in a year I probably still won't sound like how I once did. But that idea, I'm grappling with that idea of progress being achievement enough, which I think I need to recognize and appreciate for myself. And I think that's like when it comes to exercise and when it comes to like your stomach or my stomach and things like that, and just like looking back and being like, okay, it may not be the best it ever was, but it is so much better than it was 1 month ago because of this. It's just something I need to start like being better at.
Well, with achievement, do you feel like you really feel it in school, where like the getting an A is motivating, or is kind of like a meaningful achievement that makes you happy? Because for me, I don't think I get that. I don't.
The validation from it?
Yeah, I don't really get the validation if I do well. Like, I think I do get a little bit of validation if I'm smart. Like in class, when I feel like I'm really getting the content more than other people, and I'm like interacting meaningfully with the content or with the teacher. Like I feel that in philosophy, and I think I kind of felt that in Mr. Nafrio's class, but it's like I do feel like it's a little bit of a battle, like with grades, like making sure I get A's and everything, like kind of a lot of it just being doing your homework and like kind of being like busy work.
Yeah, it is. Well, on the flip, how do you feel if you get a B? Does it affect you?
Yeah, I don't like when I get a B, but it doesn't make me. I don't know if it's just always been the case. I think freshman year and sophomore year, I was like really set on college, like getting to a good college, and so that's when it like freaked me out if I like did bad at all. But I didn't really do bad at all, because except AP Bio, that was like bad.
It's okay. We don't have to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, and now I don't. In like junior year and senior year, I think I've become more mellow about college. Like knowing I can't really change anything except do my stuff. So getting a B, I just know like, okay, I'll just make sure I get an A, and somehow I just make sure I get an A without like worrying too much. But I do feel the burden is like when I'm doing my homework, or I'm sitting in class and I'm thinking like, this is not interesting. Like I don't really like this. And then just wondering like I have to get an A, like I'm going to get an A because I want to get into a good college. I've already done this for like 2 or 3 years or 4 years or 3 years. And so that's where it becomes a little mundane.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Like, I don't know how to explain other than like I put a lot of my self-worth on how like smart I think I am. Like I feel the need to be smart like all the time. I just want to be a smart person, and I understand that smart, like intelligence is not correlated to your grades at all. Like I do understand that, but for me it really feels like it. Like and to me, if I get a B, it's like this person is telling me that I'm not smart. But it's like, and what would be infuriating to me is like if that comes and somebody's like I like get a B, but there's more that I could have done. Like I could have just spent a little extra time on my response. I could have just like did my homework that one day and like proved them wrong, but I didn't do that. And so now I have this label as I'm like not smart. And I understand that it's maybe an unhealthy relationship to have with grades, and an unhealthy amount of pressure and motivation on it. But I've always felt like that correlated to something about myself. But I will say, I feel like your mindset about it, I think, is healthy too. Because if it's like, I'm not interested in something, but I have to learn it, I'm just going to learn it. But it doesn't mean I have to excel at it. You know what I mean? And like, the way that I perceive you is not the type of person like I still see that you have like a drive to excel when it comes to something that you are interested in, you know? And like, if it's a class that you love, like, I'd imagine the homework is a lot less burdensome and things like that. And I think that the risk comes when it's like everything, there's just no motivation for anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't like any of my classes. I just don't like school. I just don't like learning. And even so, school is not for everyone. And I recognize that. And people are still able to like succeed without it. But I just don't see that being you. And so I don't see like that being an especially unhealthy mindset to have. I think it's a healthy amount of pressure to put on yourself of like, what do I really need to excel in? And what am I just here to learn and digest? But I do think that that has always been a motivating factor for me to get my stuff done.
When it comes to celebration, like, does you're like really being happy about an achievement or something, or do you think you're good at that, or like do you feel like that appreciation for everything you've done? Or
I feel like this is, however I say it, it's going to come across wrong. I think that my dad has told me this too before, but like that I get really hyper focused on like the next thing. And the thing that, I guess I'm saying that achievement like is my motivating factor, but I think it's quite like the opposite maybe, that like the idea of not achieving something is my motivating factor. And when it comes to like the idea of getting a lower grade is what motivates me to get my good grades, and not so much the feeling of getting an A, it's the feeling of not getting, you know? And so I think like when it comes to being proud of myself or things that like I've accomplished, it's more of a relief than celebration. Like, okay, I didn't end up, right? And then it's hard, I think a lot of people, especially like the people we surround ourselves with, need to do just a better job of appreciating the accomplishments that they've already gained, and like really recognizing and celebrating that for ourselves, instead of always being like, well, okay, what's the next thing, you know? But there's got to be a healthy balance, I guess.
Yeah. What I think I've come to a certain conclusion about is like, it's good to have goals. A lot of this comes from Mark Manson and also Alan Watts, but it's like, it's good to have goals and to do things in life, but the purpose is not like to reach the goal. The purpose is just to just get you doing something, like get you off the couch and just start doing stuff. And so in the process of doing stuff, it's just meaningful. And like with achievements, like when Kyber plays guitar, like I haven't talked to him about this, but I think that this is the case for him. He just likes playing. And maybe he does like a performance or two, like he'll...
But I feel like it's not why he does it.
Yeah, it's not like he's why he does it or why he's achieving anything. I think he knows that this is just fun. Like, he likes to do it. And I think that like, I just wonder if achievement is just an illusion, because it oftentimes is just like, it's just a way to not be present for anything.
I feel that way. I really understand that.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think in so many things, like what you're saying, it's like it's exactly what you said, that like it's more important to derive meaning from the actual like doing homework, learning this, like, wow, I'm like actually learning something, you know, instead of just being like, well, I'm doing this for the A. But and I think sometimes like it is that case, and sometimes there are classes that I'm like, this is so cool and I like want to be learning about this. But I do agree that like sometimes the idea of only it being the end goal, and I think it's been that way for my entire high school experience, and it's why it's gone everything has gone by so fast. And I'm sure a lot of people would say the same, of just like, just so focused on the next accomplishment and the next achievement that it doesn't matter like what we're doing right now. We just want the next thing and the next thing. It doesn't matter what we're doing. And I think that the one place where I find that to not be the case is like theater. And I think that's why I have so much passion for it. Like, because every other thing, it's like the final thing. In theater, I love performing. Like, I do. I truly, so much joy from performing. But the entire process to me is so meaningful. Like, I love going to rehearsal, and I love like working on this and working on that. And it's not about the performance. And I think for me, that's why that is so meaningful to me, because I'm able to separate the achievement, which is like the final performance, from being the motivating factor of all the action.
Yeah. Is the performing or the like rehearsal when you're like saying your lines and acting the fun part, or is it like interacting with people in theater?
I think it's both. Like, I love acting. And there have been some times where I've been really rocky with the other people in the drama club, and maybe they haven't been like my bestest of pals. But I think the whole action of like, just I love acting and I love performing, and it's such a plus side that I happen to enjoy the people who are doing it with me. But I wouldn't say it's like the reason why I do it.
Does it get repetitive for you?
No, because we're constantly working on something new. Like, if we think of in the scope of like, every year there's a new show, and so I have a new character. But also, like, in the scope of the play, it's like, well, this character is feeling a different thing at this point versus this point. And for me, there's just so much nuance to it. And I think it's like, this is so unrelated, but like, why I want to like go into law and things like that. Like, I feel like each case is like so similar to that. Like, there's a new person that you're trying to help. There's a new like I feel like it's so dynamic, like theater and like the law, but like theater, and I just don't get bored. I feel like there's always something new to learn.
Is it the same way with doing interp, like in speech and debate, or because I found that doing interp in freshman year for me, like, and it was a little more fun doing the duo with you, because
there's another person.
There's like another person, and I think it's a little more complicated that way. But for me, it was just like, oh my god, I've done this like 30 times already. Like, I enjoyed doing the first part, like learning the accents and then figuring out the acting. But now that I've done it so many times,
yeah,
it doesn't feel that way for you?
No, it does sometimes. But especially because like my piece last year, there was so much constructive criticism after every single tournament, and I know how badly Coach Epley wanted me to succeed with it, that it was like I was like incentivized to incorporate all of the feedback. So it really was like I had a new piece every tournament. Like, I had the same piece, but there was something big that I had changed here or there or there. And I think that comes with theater too. Like, of course we rehearse the same scenes like a million times, but each time we have a new note. Each time we have a new way to approach things. And it'll get boring sometimes when, yeah, I've done it 20 times and we're helping, and like we're only giving notes to my scene partner, and maybe like we're okay with how I'm doing things right now, and then I'm like, okay, well, this is a little boring. But I do think that there's ways to bring nuance into it. I do think it's like much harder, because you're right, you truly are doing the same thing, especially when it's you're by yourself. You have nobody else to respond to, and there's something to change. But I think it's different.
Okay. What was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna talk about Sanjana. Like, when you listen, did you listen to Sanjana?
I did, yeah.
When you listen to the episode, do you feel like you understood Sanjana's philosophy or like the way she approaches life, or where she gets motivation and discipline from. And the reason why I'm asking you this is because I still don't really, I'm kind of confused on like how such a
Okay, wait.
functions.
I'm trying to reflect. The main things that I remember is the mindset of we have 24 hours in the day, let me fill it how I can, right? And the idea of like we have so much time, so she would always like try and like fill her time. And then the other idea of like she did everything because she wanted to. Like, what was the main?
Yeah, I think I don't really remember the 24-hour thing, but I do remember like just doing things because she wanted to. And like she said, like I really like robotics, like I really like doing this stuff, so she just does it. And there's like, and she's like, yeah, I think it just seemed like her mindset is just like based on passion.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
But I don't know how much like passion you can have for things, and like where is it coming? Because I don't think I fully understood her. But I don't know if you had any.
I'm
thoughts.
trying to reflect. I think that like I really think that it's a positive. Okay. I agree with her mindset, and I think it's a really positive one to have. And I think that like at the end of the day, if what you're doing doesn't come from passion, then you're just not going to perform as well as you want to. You're not going to want to do it, which again translates to the performance thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that can be so detrimental in so many ways. Like I can think about so many people who I feel like if they don't get into the colleges they want to, they'll be like, well, everything I did was useless. And I feel like that's such a negative perception to have about the things that you're doing. Like, then why are you doing them? You know what I mean? And I think like it contradicts with what I was saying earlier when I was like, yeah, well, I feel like it's mostly just for achievement. But I do think that like that achievement for me is like something that I want for myself. Does that make sense? Like I want to achieve things for myself. I'm not trying to achieve things for like college or for like somebody else, you know? And I think that that's like, this might be too roundabout and too vague and too big, but like I think I'm passionate about succeeding. And that's so silly because I'm sure so many people are passionate about success. But like that is something that'll bring me motivation, that'll bring me joy, that'll bring me like love. And when I like look back on high school, I genuinely am like, I don't feel like I've forced myself to do anything that I didn't find like get enjoyment from, you know? Mm-hmm. And like some things are like hard, but at the end of the day, do you gain enjoyment from it or do you not? And I think that like it really weeds out people who want to be successful. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I think that it's such, passion is such a weeding I guess weeding is the only word I know, like separating factor of like success, because the people who aren't,
like, you're not gonna perform or be successful.
Yeah. So I feel like I understand her mindset. I think sometimes it's hard to find passion in things and find meaning in things. But I also like believe that everybody can in something and in many things too. And that most people I know are very dynamic and interesting people, and that pursuing their interests would bring them joy.
Where it was difficult for me was like wondering how you find passion like that at like a young age, like being in high school and thinking that history day is interesting and then doing history day, and then thinking that speech and debate is interesting and then doing that, and then thinking robotics is interesting and doing that, and then doing like she did like a science, like an international science competition, and she went to like Italy or something for like,
I remember that.
Yeah, and it's like, where do you, this is not even real. Like how, like if I like, that's a lot of passion. That's like a huge well of passion, but where does it come from? Like, because like the way I can relate to London is where like I think he's a naturally like curious person. So like when he learns stuff in school, it's, I guess it's easier for him to learn as a result of his curiosity. But it's not like he's like actively like going out and like putting so much effort into all these extracurriculars like the way Sanjana does. And so I'm thinking like Sanjana has like goals for achievement as well that is part of the passion. I don't know if like that's like a good.
I think so. Like as much as Sanjana says like that she does everything because she wants to, a big part of that want has to be the achievement. Like I don't remember if she maybe said that on the podcast or not, but like people can do so many things because they want to, but ultimately if you want to be the best at it, like you have to want to be the best at it to be the best at it. Does that make sense? And I think like you can have passion for something and then you can have passion for being good at something, and that's not mutually exclusive and those aren't negative things. But I think that she probably gets a lot of, is passionate about being the best and passionate about being really good at things. And I think for her it translates into a very material way, like this award and this award and this award. And that a lot of people have things that they're passionate about being good at that don't quite translate in that way. Like
Kyber.
Yeah, like Kyber. And everybody can recognize and see his passion through his talent. But like I just think of the example of like I know people, and you're like one of them with the certain genre, but like with like, here, wait, let me just say my sentence. I know like a lot of people, or a couple of people who love to read, right? And they're like a couple of people in my lit class, a couple of people that took lit a couple of years ago. They love to read and they've read all these books and they know all these niche like literary references. And they're passionate about being like super well read. And I think like for me, reading is just one of those skills that I feel like if you are like a reader, like that just like is so helpful for everything and for your intelligence level and for everything like that. And it's like one of those things that translates to success in my mind. But I think that in some ways, like you're not going to see this person that's always reading, and or you're not going to like know that they're like especially well read. Like, does that make sense? But that doesn't put any less merit to it.
Yeah, there's not necessarily achievement at the end of being a well-read person, or it's not as like not something you recognize as much, but you still respect them for that.
Yeah, like there's no like, maybe they could win like writing competitions, but I do think that's a little bit different than just being a reader, you know, like writing and reading. But like, yeah, I just don't think there's a material accomplishment. But I think everybody's got to be passionate about something.
I think the question that I've probably just wondered about in terms of discipline is whether or not there needs to be days where I don't really feel that passion, or days where it's boring, or like, because people have the illusion that motivation comes to you, but like motivation is kind of, it's like something that you find once you do like go into action and do something, and then it comes. It's not like the first thing that comes. But with like, for me, I think I've realized that exercising, like the people who work out and get big, like they have the, like a lot of kids in high school, they have the intention at the beginning of like becoming jacked, or like becoming like having good physique, But then in the process of working out, like the people who do continue working out, they kind of associate their identity with like liking working out. They like going to the gym and lifting weights, and it's like satisfying for them. And then the achievement part is like not really what's driving them anymore. And I think that's meaningful, just like working out because it's enjoyable and you like going to the gym. But then I don't know if like even attaching any importance to like future achievements, like having goals I think is good, but achievements, I wonder if that's a beneficial tool or thing, or if it just delays your happiness for later and makes you less present. Because Kyber was telling me that he doesn't really attach that much importance to college. He doesn't like think college is as important as like I do or you do or Vicky does or Jason or Bridge. And so, and I feel like that, and he's told me that he thinks he's the happiest person, like out of everyone he knows. He's the happiest. He really? He's the happiest person. And like
I think I'm happy.
yeah, maybe.
No, I see where he's coming from. He doesn't have the same pressure on himself. And I don't disagree with that. I think like I agree with your example of like the gym. Like probably at the beginning they're not gonna like love lifting weights because you're just sitting there and lifting weights. Like probably that's not what's driving them until they get big, and then like this passion develops. And I think like Atomic Habits, like that book was like a good one of like the importance of discipline. And I think like there are gonna be some days where you're not gonna want to do something. Like there's so many days when I don't want to practice viola. But I think ultimately, like, practicing viola still on those days is so important, because maybe next week I'll have a week where I'm, like, really excited to do things like that. Also, I'm making this sound like I practice viola every day. I don't. I just want to put that clear. Like, that's not something I'm especially disciplined about. But, like, I think, like, that as an example.
Yeah.
And, like, but at the same time, there is a line of then, am I just forcing this passion? But I don't think that bad days or in school, like a bad unit or like something like that means anything. I think it's just something that you had to like, some days you're gonna have energy and motivation and some days you're not, and that's like okay, but that doesn't mean overall you don't have motivation. And I think trying to recognize those things that just don't bring you joy, period, versus the things that sometimes bring you joy and sometimes are really hard, which I think those things are worth it, because I think it's always better to choose to do the hard thing if it's gonna bring you joy somewhere. Wait, what was I gonna say? But the achievement delaying your happiness? I'm blanking. What was the last thing that you said?
I said, like, is it worth having achievements? Like, not goal. Like,
I remember. Okay. I think this goes into a conversation of, like, fulfillment. Like, I know some people of, like, if they don't achieve this, if they don't get into the college that they want to get into, if they don't get the award that they want to get, if they don't get the role that they, like, need to get, which, okay, I'm the same part in, like, the role sense, but, like, everything else, they won't feel fulfilled. And, like, these things and these goals that they're having now aren't fulfilling them. And I think for Kyber, the way I've observed is, like, I think he thinks he lives, like, a very fulfilled and happy life, which, like you just said, that he thinks he's, like, the happiest person he knows, which is, like, fair. If he's, like, super happy, that's really great. And I do generally think he's, like, he puts himself under so much less, like, stress and pressure than a lot of us do, which is very admirable. And I do admire that a lot. And I think, for me, achievement does sometimes hinder from what I'm currently doing, and it does blind me, and I'm always looking to the next thing, and that is true. But honestly, I feel like without that, I wouldn't feel fulfilled, which is maybe an unhealthy attachment to the achievement. But I think that to a sense, it's about doing all of these things to make me feel fulfilled. But I think that also translates to a sense of I'll feel fulfilled no matter what college I go to, because of all these things that have been fulfilling me. Does that make sense? Because I feel like I'm super confident about, again, it goes to this internal versus external thing, that I've internally recognized these achievements, and that I've internally set my sights on these achievements, and regardless of whether somebody externally tells me that they're worthy or not, I feel like they're worthy and I feel fulfilled. So I think that hopefully, as long as I just don't put myself under like an excessive amount of pressure, I think that that's like the important thing, is knowing what's enough for yourself and being then enough for yourself. And I think I'm always going to have to try my hardest to be enough for myself, and that if I come to a point where I'm not trying super hard in everything that I'm doing, I'm going to feel disappointed in myself, but I think that that is okay with me. Does that make sense? Or am I like trying to excuse myself?
Yeah, it does make sense. Like, what I'm getting from it is that you're saying that there's like purpose already in like working hard and like feeling enough yourself, and then the external achievement part of it is only one part of it. It's like you're still getting something out of having like done stuff, doing stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So but I feel like it just jumbles everything up, because it's not like achievement is a good thing or achievement is a bad thing. It's just achievement is what makes me happy with myself.
Okay.
Which I feel like is maybe inherently negative, but
maybe you should talk to Kyber. Kyber has like an interesting perspective on achieving stuff, I think.
Yeah, I'd want to talk to him.
Are you tired or dizzy from talking? Dizzy.
I'm getting a little dizzy, yeah. My eyes are getting a little tired.
Okay, I'll ask you, how much longer do you want to go for?
I can go for however long. I can also come back. Not like re-offering myself to come back.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm happy to come back whenever.
Okay. I'll ask you like a few more
ask
questions.
me whatever you want to ask today. And if there's more, I love this.
Yeah, you'll definitely be on again soon or later.
You don't have to make the promise, but
Okay.
but I'm just letting you know that like I'm so open.
Okay. Cause, like what I'm gonna ask you now, we could kind of do it like rapid fire. It doesn't need to be like a super long response depending on the question.
Sure.
But when it comes to entertainment or doing things for fun, you've told me like how during college apps, like when you're doing something fun or like hang out with someone else, you like think you could be doing college apps. But is this the case for everything? Any fun thing that you do like before college apps as well, and just like going to a concert, for example, like does it feel good, or do you have any hesitations about it?
It's like a big circle of, and my mom tells me this all the time, like, Keira, you just need to go and enjoy it because you need it, and like, Keira, you need to like not stress when you're out here because like this is what it's for. And I think it's come to a point where I'm trying to like reconcile, where if I'm doing something fun, if I'm hanging out with people or doing something completely lighthearted, like recognizing the value that adds to my life too. And with college apps, it was so hard because it's so unstructured, and it's so like you could spend your entire life on college apps for like a whole year if you wanted to, you know what I mean? And the idea that there are some people out there doing more, and that in my mind there are some people out there doing more, which I feel like I need to get away from, because it's, and like, so I guess to answer your question, yes, it's kind of always in the back of my mind, but it's definitely something that I'm working on and that I'm trying to like get better on, of like I don't always need to be working on everything, and that recognizing the value that having fun adds to your life, which like is a lot of value.
Yeah.
And I do think that like I have a lot of fun. Like I'm not saying that I'm like no, like I don't have fun. Like I do think I have a lot of fun. But just recognizing the importance of having a lot of fun and the balance of it, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know if that was helpful.
Yeah, that was helpful. So earlier you said that you kind of like, you feel like you've gone to like know yourself more. And what I wonder about is like having an identity. Like I came across the idea pretty recently about like we're still teenagers, or like we're still in high school, and like you don't really know yourself fully, like know your identity until like later, like when you're 30 or something like that. But a part of it is like kind of being confused about like what it means to be yourself. And it's like what with certain people like take I might like,
That's okay.
for this name drop, I might like take it out later, but for like, for example, in Gov, he seems to be like very confident about what he's saying. And
He's so confident what he says.
Yeah, he's really confident.
He's so confident.
And I don't know if it's like a product of him knowing himself and like knowing what brings him fulfillment, if that makes sense. And
I think like for me it's two things. One, I'm confident in who I am, recognizing different things about my identity. Like I know some things are for sure about myself, like I'm an extrovert, like I'm short, like I like to talk, like I really like this person, I really don't like that person, like things like that. But also being comfortable with being wrong and kind of with change also. These are two different things, but they're kind of related. Like I feel like or this unnamed person in our Gov class is always believes that he's right, but when it comes to the point where Dr. Wilson like corrects him, like sometimes he'll stand corrected. Be like, oh, I didn't know that. Or like, you know, sometimes I do feel like he allows himself to be corrected. And so I feel like confidence comes from two things. One, believing you're saying the right thing, but also being okay if you're not saying the right thing. Because I feel like if you're always being like right, like I have to be right all the time, there's no way that you can be confident because you never really know if you're right, you know? And I think the same thing about my identity. Like this is who I think I am right now. This is how I think I like act. This is the people I think I'm friends with right now. But also I recognize that that's all going to change. And like we're still teenagers. And I think I've had to deal with a lot of change. And that like going through that, I guess. Hi. It's okay. Do you want to say hi?
I don't know.
He's just peeking.
Jonathan? He's still there.
Yeah. Well, just like, yeah. Like being comfortable with the idea that this is who I think I am right now, and I know it's going to change, but that because I know it's going to change, I don't have to be so sure. Like that I don't have to be right, I guess. Does that make sense? Like just the idea of like I don't always have to be right about myself, about anything else. But right now I think I'm right, and that's okay.
Like being open to flexibility or adaptability or changing.
Yeah, and I think that brings a lot of confidence because it's like, I think I'm right. This is my opinion. I recognize that sometimes I have wrong opinions, but that kind of lets you be a little more confident in your own opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think I've like really asked you about this, but since your injury, how has it been mentally, or like, do you think you've like emotionally or mentally changed in or like gone through stuff in the past like 3 years?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, ultimately, like, well, I feel like I've changed a lot. And you're one of the people, right? And there's not too many of the people who have known me really well before and really well after. And I guess just like, I don't know if you think I've changed, do you?
Not really.
And I think like my personality was always like a certain way. But mentally, I think that I think it's like something for me that was really isolating for a long time because it was something that was so serious, and I felt like nobody around me could understand something that serious. And I still feel like that a lot of times, and I think it's a little bit unfair of me because I think everybody has something that they've gone through that's really serious, or like, and a lot of people, you know? And I just felt like I felt like I had to change my scope from like right now to like the rest of my life. And like something has happened to me that's never ever going to go back for the rest of my life. It's this way. And for the rest of my life, I'm living with like this trauma and this PTSD and all of that stuff. And so for me, it was so hard. It can be still so hard to be around people sometimes when their greatest fear is that they don't get into like some college, or that they like get a B on this test, and that like that are just like thinking in a timeline that is just so much shorter than this timeline that I've been forced to look at, I feel like. And I've sometimes like I feel like it's made me angry, and it's like isolated me. And I think with like the lawsuit and everything, I've just had to think about so many things like in the scope of just like this decision is truly like so important, and nobody can tell me that, oh, you're being short-sighted, or oh, you're just thinking. Like, it's one of those things where I feel like it's given me empathy, but it's also given me a lot of judgment, which I feel like ashamed of. Like, I know I shouldn't judge people for like their stresses, and everybody is valid, and everybody like with their worries are so valid. But sometimes I would just look around me and be like, these people's worries are just so silly, you know? And like, this can't be the main thing that they're worried about. And like just yesterday, I was having to worry about like going to court and like saying this in front of these people, and like there's no way that these people are just worrying about like XYZ. And I thought, like, for a long time it's given me like so much judgment, and I think I'm like finally going away from that. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe I'm just saying that, but in the long run I think I do really appreciate the perspective that it's given me. And it's been really hard, and mentally it's something that's not constant, because like a lot of the times the things that I talk to you about and things like that are really what's pressing and what's on my mind. But some days it's just like I've had an especially hard day because it's like my deposition, or it's a year since this, or I had a call with the lawyers and I had to talk about this. And I think in the long run it's an experience that I really like. I appreciate the perspective it's given me and other things that it's given me, and like I've found a lot of new qualities about myself that I genuinely do appreciate. But it's definitely something that I feel like has affected me in a lot of ways, and that's changed my mindset on a lot of things. That was really long tangent.
I would imagine that that like sharing your judgment with others, or like telling someone else like how you feel about your hand, like does it feel like you're complaining to them, or that it would make you
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so much of, again, this thing that we were talking about earlier about being needy, so much of like validation comes from if somebody needs me and I'm actually able to help them and we're able to talk through something, and that's like a good feeling. Or somebody needs me and they, after the conversation, it's like I feel so much better, you know? And I feel like when it comes to this, I can tell people about it, and I like to think of myself as an open person. I'm okay being vulnerable, you know? Like if you ask me about it, I'll tell you about it. If I'm having a hard day, I'm okay telling you about it. I just don't think that there's nothing you can do about it, you know? And so for me, that feels like such a burden to put on other people. Like I'm telling you these things and there's nothing you could do about it. So it's just perpetually me being negative about something that there's nothing we can do about.
Yeah. Like when you talk to your therapist about it, does it feel like your therapist can do anything about it? Or it's just like you talking to a wall, like there's nothing you can do?
I think my therapist offers me good perspectives on things. When it comes to the actual PTSD and actual trauma stuff, that, of course, the therapist can do something about, because there is solutions for that. When it comes to me having a hard day and me complaining, I feel much better, again, talking to my therapist about it, because I feel like they have a sense of they know what to do, and they also know when sometimes they don't know what to do. But I don't like putting a peer in that situation of like, you're lost for words. You feel like you have to say something to this, and yeah.
Well, have you wanted to share that, or have you felt like it wouldn't, or like you don't really need to say it out loud?
I think like this comes from two things. I think one, in general, I'm really bad about asking for help. Like if I, especially physically, because I just try and navigate everything like with my hand, and like if I like can't carry something, I'm gonna figure out a way to carry it before I ask for help. So I think it comes from not being able to ask for help, but still wanting people to understand. Like I think everything takes me so much longer, like just physically, just doing everything, like packing up my backpack, or typing, or like writing and erasing, or like handling things. Like everything just takes me so much longer. And then mentally, some days are just so frustrating and so hard because something really bad, or like really hard with the lawsuit came up, or something was brought up, or some bit of evidence, like just things like that. And I have like, sometimes I just want people to know what I'm going through, just so when I'm still showing up like normal, I just want people to understand the extra effort that it takes to show up to normal. And I feel it frustrates me sometimes that I'm like, I like don't typically talk about it. And I feel like people don't see that because I don't talk about it, but I don't like want to sit here and complain about it, you know? Like I've accepted that it's just how it is for me now. It's just how my life is, and it's just the way it's just how it is, you know? So there's nothing, I don't want to complain because I just have accepted it, but I just want people to understand sometimes.
Yeah, the way I felt like last year, like I think people have said if you share your problems with other people, like it helps and it's good to do that. But last year, like when my digestion was pretty bad, and it felt like the most busy, I shared it with you a little bit, and I told Vicky, I think I told Bridge, I told Kyber, but it was like, I don't know if this is like solving the problems, like I'm just complaining, like, and this kind of has to do with like what, not being like super negative when you're dating someone, like not wanting the other person to think you're just like a pessimist, or like you have all these problems and it's just burdensome.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But I just wonder, like, is that what is the other person supposed to do when you, and is there any point in telling, or is it just like go solve your own problems? Like,
I think it's really hard because, like, I want to tell you to tell people when you're having an off day, because I think that I think that just people knowing what's going on is very, very important, and communication is important, and then people will be able to accommodate, and people are always happy to accommodate when they know what's going on. And that's like the advice that I like want to give, that I think is right, but for myself I don't do that. And I understand how uncomfortable it is to tell somebody about this, and then to have to be like, to tell somebody about what's going on, but then they really can't do anything about it. So you're not telling them asking for help. You're just telling them to provide them context, and that's just uncomfortable. And I understand that that's uncomfortable. I just think it's something that we have to work on, because there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with having a bad day. There's nothing wrong with complaining about things. And in general, people are very empathetic. They just have to know. I just think it's hard, so I can't really speak to it.
I'll ask you a few more questions.
Sounds good.
Do you think parenting, have you thought about having a child or being a parent? Like, I know you told me like that you didn't want to have a kid at some point.
Yeah, for sure. I remember for a long time I was really adamant on this fact that I would like never have kids. Like, I would never, because it looks like so much work, and it's such a selfless thing to be a parent. And I just never thought that I was cut out for that. I was just like, I'm just too like self-involved to have a child, which I think is a very immature way to think. And I've come to the point where I recognize that although right now I don't see myself having a child, I will probably get married and then want a child, like want a family when the time comes. But I've never thought that I would be a good parent, because I feel like I
have your own needs.
Yeah. And that being a parent is such a selfless thing. Such a selfless thing.
What
about you?
I think I've thought a lot about being a parent. Just because I kind of have to think of like, what is good parenting when my parents parent Jonathan. So like I'm constantly thinking like, you guys could do this, you guys could do better. So, but I don't know if I'm excited necessarily to be a parent. I just know that eventually there's a high chance that I do become a parent. And like I should start thinking about this because it's important.
Well, you don't need to now, but
yeah.
But I see where you're coming from.
It doesn't really feel like pressure thinking about it. It's more like, I think as the needs of a child, I understand a lot. And like I want a certain relationship with my parents, or I want my parents to be a certain way for me. And so like I don't want, like the worst thing that could happen is like I'm a horrible dad or I'm a horrible parent, and like my kid is just like, I hate this, like I don't like you. Yeah. And that's kind of like why I'm thinking about it, and it doesn't really feel like, and I feel like I won't be like that.
I think you'd be a good dad, but we'll have the whole future to find out.
Yeah. Okay. What other questions do I have? Oh. Another question I had was waking up in the morning. Is it easy for you to wake up in the morning, or like has it ever been easy for you?
I'm not a morning person. I want to be. I try to be. I'm not. I do feel icky if I've slept like past 10, which is probably like a crazy late time for you. But I do feel like if I sleep in for too long, I feel gross during the day and I feel unproductive and like I've wasted the day. But waking up is super hard for me. I have like 4 alarms in the morning just to get out of bed. Like even today I had an alarm to wake up at 9 a.m. So I feel like I'm not a morning person. It's because I appreciate having nighttime. Because it's like the day, you think the day ends at like 9 p.m. But the day could really end. You could have like 4 extra hours if you really think about it. So I tend to take advantage of my nights. And then in the morning I'm like groggy. But I do think that it's really how you spend your morning is really important. Which I know you're a proponent of. But like on the weekends, if I don't have something in the morning, I will wake up, I will eat breakfast, and I'll go for a run. Because I feel like that prepares me for the rest of the day. If I just wake up and I like I'm on my phone for an hour, the rest of the day is just gross.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Are you I heard it in a podcast, like, I don't think I ever understood like people just feeling like bad like this morning. Like what I feel is like really bad for like the first 10 minutes after waking up, and then everything's fine after that, and then I feel kind of good as I get more fresh. But I heard like from Kristen Bell, like when she was on a podcast, she was explaining how like in the morning I'm just not a morning person. Like the first like hour, 2 hours, like when I'm on set, like don't talk to me, like kind of stuff. I'm just cranky. I'm like, that's a very long time.
Yeah.
After waking up.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Bro.
Are you cranky in the morning, or is that?
No, I wouldn't say so. Like in the morning at school, like that's probably the best. Like the first 2 or 3 blocks are when you've got me in the morning at school. But I think I would say like on the weekend, if I'm like wake up and my mom tells me to do like 10 million things like immediately, that gets me frustrated because I feel like I'm like, okay, now I have to do this in the morning or else I'll feel bad the rest of the day. And now you're having me do this and it's like altering my routine. But I wouldn't say that's just like because it's the morning. But I can see where that's coming from, because when I get tired, I mean, when everybody gets tired, I feel like they just shut off and get cranky.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure waking up in the morning. I think in middle school and like freshman year, when I would like wake up really early, like at 5, like I would really like try to do that, and it felt like every day was like a battle, and it was like mental fatigue in the morning to do that, and I think that's really unhealthy.
Yeah, if it's like an uphill battle, it's like, what are you fighting for?
But I think what's helped me is I've put like my alarm on a chair like away from my bed, and then the alarm is like it's on an app called Sleep Cycle, where it softly comes on so it doesn't feel disruptive, and then I get up, and I like the most important thing is just getting up and then like running out the room. Like as soon as I get out the room, then I'll brush my teeth and then like use the restroom and then go do stuff. And then but it always feels like even after 9 hours of good sleep, or like 10 hours good sleep from like 9 to 7 or 9 to like 7:30, it's always really hard to get up. Like it feels.
Do you ever just sleep like without an alarm? When's the last time you did that?
I think I've never really done with an alarm. I guess I'm scared that I'm gonna like keep sleeping.
That's fair.
But I haven't.
You might.
But I did like last week. Was it last week? Maybe it was like within the past 2 weeks. I slept till like 11, and it's because I think I slept a little later in the night, like at 11 or 12, and I felt bad. And then in the morning at like 7:30, the alarm woke me up probably, and then I put it back down. I set it for 8, and then I woke up, and then like I walked back to my bed and just put the alarm next to me, and it like turns on like every 5 minutes. So I was like, and eventually I probably closed it, and then I just slept till 11, and I felt a little.
Did you feel better or worse? That's what I'm curious about.
I think I felt like a little split between feeling better and worse, because it feels like I just lost 3 hours of the day where I feel most fresh.
Mm-hmm. That's fair, me too.
But I would have felt, it probably would have been bad for my body, because I know sleep is important if I didn't get an extra like 3 hours. But then it's like these 3 hours aren't that good because your body isn't actually getting as much quality sleep in that time. And I felt a little gross.
But like, how did you actually feel?
Yeah. Like waking up.
Yeah.
It was hard to wake up. Like I was in my bed just like rolling around.
I know. I do that all the time, just
like,
dawdling.
And then I got up and I felt kind of like my brain was a little stretched. And I might have like gone outside or like taken a cold shower. I don't know which one it was.
I know. If I sleep in late, I always need to shower like immediately, or else I feel so icky. But yeah, I don't know, because I'm just like trying to see if, because like I know you're very good about your sleep schedule and you get like enough sleep every night, which is very healthy. But it's just interesting to think that like even then I'll be groggy in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's just like how it goes. Like I think I wake up at like 11 sometimes and I feel terrible too, like still groggy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I guess that's just part of life.
I guess for me, if I like really like, okay, because one time I slept for like 2 hours. Like I've slept for very little periods of time before at like sleepovers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll wake up and I'll feel energized for like 4 or 5 hours. And then that's all my sleep can carry me through. And then at that point is when I just like I just don't have, my brain goes foggy and I just can't do anything for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really weird the way the energy works. Okay, I thought the last question I'd ask you is, what are your 5 favorite artists or your 5 favorite restaurants?
Okay, let's do artists because we've been talking about music.
Okay.
I need to pull out my Spotify. So let me pull them out. Okay, right now, changes all the time. All the time. My 5 favorite artists are probably the Backseat Lovers. It's a band. I love them. Billie Eilish. I just love all of her music. I know it's a little basic, but I love her.
Mm-hmm.
Mac Miller. He just released a new album. He's like kind of rap. There's like one that I want to make sure these last 2 are like very... Oh. Dominic Fike and Tyler, the Creator. Those are my 5. And I suggest listening to some Billie Eilish and some Backseat Lovers first. Because the rest, the lyrics are not like the most, like, I don't know if you'll like them.
Relatable.
Yeah. I just really like I really like Mac Miller. Dominic Fike is like a bunch of fun songs.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tyler, the Creator is just fun.
Are those part of different genres of music?
Mostly, yeah. Or at least from each other. They're all like different type of music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send you a couple songs. I'll send you my current favorites.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
This was very fun.
This is I think this might be the first podcast that I've recorded in a while. Yeah.
Well, it's been so fun. And I like your setup. I think it's cool.
Thanks.
So thanks for listening.
Thanks
listeners.
for listening.
And Ryan. Perfect.
All right. Peace.